Welcome back to the Gufs Circa 2020 podcast. We have an extremely special edition for you guys tonight. We have not one, not two, but three members of the Gufs with us tonight. We've got Goran, we've got Dejan, we've got Morgan. We're ready to rock and roll. And tonight we're talking about Collide. So as we've talked about in previous episodes, we covered Staring into the Sun. We've talked about Songs of Life, Circa 89. So tonight we're covering where the rubber met the road and where the band started to really gain some traction, moving towards our next episode, which will be the Atlantic release. So gentlemen, thanks for joining us tonight. How's everyone going?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm a little starstruck tonight. I didn't expect more than Goran, which is normally fantastic, but to have the other two guys, this is going to be great. So,
I mean, do you ever need more than Goran?
Huh?
Do you really need more than me? I mean, all of a sudden I thought this show was all about me, and now I've got like two other Gufs.
I was starting to wonder. So
I'll let the music speak for itself, whether or not you need us.
Well, we do. And again, thanks for joining. But to kick this off, to catch Morgan and Dejan up and what we've been doing. So, like I said, we've kind of chronicled the songs and albums so far. So this one being pretty much where, in Goran, as we've talked, Crash was really kind of what started to gain traction in Milwaukee. So Collide came out as an album. You guys are playing the Celebrity Club. I think we're close to Shank Hall, right? We're in the Shank Hall realm at this point, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so, because Collide came out in what, 95?
94 originally. So
94 originally.
Yeah.
So let's paint the picture. Since we've got all three of you here, let's start from. So when we look at the songwriting process, so really we're jumping from Songs of Life to Collide, because Circa 89 was more of a what's happening since we started. That was kind of a conglomerate of past songs. So we talked about the maturity of Songs of Life and how your craft was getting more specific and how you're starting to learn to write songs. And you literally took Songs of Life and then you just knocked it out of the park with Collide. So at that point, we've talked about this, Goran. What transition between Songs of Life and Collide? Where did the songwriting process go? What's advanced, and how serious are you guys taking yourselves at this point? Because it's obviously it's very serious, but kind of paint the picture for us here.
Yeah, we're starting to get like really popular now. So Shank Hall was definitely a place that we would sell out, and as grunge rock of the 90s was evolving. I think that's when I made a choice to start picking up the electric guitar, which was really bizarre for me. So I think with that came a little bit more of what defined us and what we thought would be the sound that, would take us to kind of a different level. And that was my melodic voice, which is not an angry sounding voice, coupled with the drive of Morgan's guitars and obviously the rhythm section with Danny and Scott. So I think sonically we just wanted to fit in with what was happening. STP was happening, Nirvana, stuff like, the whole 90s grunge rock scene,
Well,
you're still wearing a shirt, a flannel from the 90s.
I wore it intentionally tonight, actually. This is intentional. I figure, all right, we're talking about, the grunge phase and things. I'm like, I got to pull out a flannel. So my wife's like, you're really wearing that? And I said, yeah, it's appropriate. But he touched on one of the big parts of this. And it's something we've talked about in the past. How Morgan, how your sound has evolved when you look at from when you came to the band, and how I think and I'm not blowing smoke up, your butt here, but I think it is such a defining sound, and you look at this album and all of a sudden now you're adding distortion and you're adding the whammy pedal, stuff like that I think has been kind of a defining Guf's trademark sound moving forward. I mean, how did you kind of come about that, and what feedback did you get from, Barry Manilow and Goran and Dejan and things like that? But I mean, what kind of, when you first brought this to the band, what was the reception?
I like how you used the word feedback, because that was something else too, right?
Yeah.
I think that, you know, Goran kind of painted the picture. Like we were taking ourselves more seriously. We were even auditioning studios for this project. Like we wanted to record at a cool studio. You know, we went to it was at the American Club by where the Playboy Mansion is in Lake Geneva. They had a great studio there. We wound up recording at Smart Studios, which is just legendary in Madison, Wisconsin. But you know, we'd never gone through the trouble to like audition recording studios before. And I think we kind of took, all of us, it wasn't just me, but I think all of us, Goran picking up the electric guitar, Dejan trying different bass tones and bass amps, and really kind of expanding his sound on a Rickenbacker at that time. And me, I think we had some equipment stolen. I had to buy some new amps. I made a conscious choice to not buy clean amps, or I bought amps that really, you know, if you turn them up to 10 or 11, I mean, they sounded really, really good, right? And at the time, I remember when I played that my first match list for you guys at your apartment in Chicago, first thing Goran said was, "It looks really cool." And then we played through it. And that kind of, and the, you know, the more distorted, the louder it got, the more different things I tried, the more these guys gave me positive feedback. I mean, you know, so we were, I don't think we were really conscious about like sound, or sonically we wanted to like be like Nirvana. You know, I think we knew we were ourselves. We knew Goran had his voice. We knew that we had our songwriting melodic approach to, you know, our craft, but it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And I think we also got great feedback from the fans, right? I mean, we became at that time a rock band. I mean, I guess we were a rock band before, but I think we really kind of grew into our own through adding effects and distortion, and me kind of playing around with feedback on stage with the guitar and the wah-wah pedal. And, you know, so it all kind of mushroomed with all four of us and Brian Pettit at the time. You know, it really just kind of cascaded onto itself. And then by the time we got into the studio, I mean, the songs were there, and we really started to pull out the stops in terms of taking advantage of what Smart Studios had to offer, which was far and away nothing that we had ever experienced before. We really kind of took it to a next level in terms of recording. So, you know, what you're holding up the CD there, I mean, what you've got as a final product there, it just kind of was, you know, we recorded analog, we mastered analog. We actually went through the trouble of, you know, trying to pick a really good mastering engineer. What we had at the end of the day was something that I don't think we knew we were going to have, but we knew it was totally different, and we knew it was good. So it was really cool to be a part of. It was transformative, really.
We had a producer, you know, Brian, too, which was the other three albums we just kind of plugged in and played, and they pressed record. So this was kind of cool to get a little bit of different feedback. Yeah,
we had actually somebody giving us feedback in the studio, like, do this, try this. What about that? That sucked. Do that over, right? And before it was kind of like we were just producing ourselves, really.
Well, and to tie into that, Dan, we had talked last week about the scene at the time and what was happening and how other bands were perceiving. So at this point, you have to think you guys are really onto something. You know, the fan base is growing. There's the shows are growing, things are getting bigger, and you're starting to take yourself more seriously. So in your eyes, Dan, I mean, when this CD first came out, what was the reception of it, and what was the fan interaction, and how do people look at it and say, I mean, there's a case to be said that this is a different band than Songs of Life. I mean, it's exponentially, you know, heavier, more intense, and there's a deep sound to it. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, I think when you look back at everything, and we talked a little bit about this last time, you and I did, as far as how the band evolved, those first couple albums were really just trying to find ourselves and just also becoming musicians. You know, up to that point, outside of maybe a little bit high school bands that we played in, none of us were out gigging regularly, and we really grew once Morgan came into the band in 1990. We started to play together more frequently, and we started to play bigger venues, and we started to develop a bigger set list. And as our songwriting, you know, just like anybody, I think you tend to mature and progress. You become better musicians. You become better lyricists. You become better songwriters. And I think it took us those first couple albums, and then Circa '89, sort of like a retro look back with fresher, more contemporary ears and eyes at the time. We started to experiment with a little bit of a heavier sound. And when you're playing out 3, 4, or 5 times a week at some point, and you're making money off of it, all of a sudden you are buying nicer equipment. You're going from really shitty amps and shitty guitars, and you're investing back into the music. And at that point, I think we finally got to the place where we were finally comfortable in our own skin, and we were working really well together. That Morgan's already at that point, we're 2 albums of fresh material in, and we revisit some older stuff, and then now we're starting to write more and more stuff together, and obviously being influenced by everything else that's going on in the scene. You had grunge transitioning into modern rock, which was a little bit heavier but more melodic. So we fit in with other contemporary bands like Dishwalla, like Tonic, a lot of these other bands that we got away from our like mid '80s college radio, like alt sort of roots. Sort of our jangly REM meets Let's Active meets Grapes of Wrath roots, and we started to grow. And I think a lot of the fans that were there along the way, they saw that and they heard that and they were excited by it. So every time we would debut a new song, like, hey, check this out, we got great responses. So I think we went into recording that album really excited. We were excited about where we were at and what we were writing. And then, like Morgan said, we're finally working with professionals to where they're actually giving us input. Well, all right, let's not use that tone. Let's change this out. Try a different snare. We had that luxury of being able to self-fund, months at a time at Smart Studios back in 94, 95 to put out our 4th album, but the 3rd album of new material, really. So I think a lot of it, it all combined. And I think anybody, even, Goran and I have these conversations now. It's like, at this point in hindsight, we're becoming better and better songwriters. We're telling better stories. We're writing better melodies. We're hopefully writing cooler hooks and riffs. And you see that. And I think with Collide, it was an obvious but a very distinct departure. But I think it was where we were always going to be going regardless. And I think we just sort of naturally sort of evolved to that point to where Collide was the next logical sound for us and the next logical soundscape and evolution of our sound.
So you find a real studio, Smart Studio. And for those out there that have no idea what Smart Studio is, we're talking Butch Vig, Nirvana, what else? Smashing
Pumpkins.
Yep,
Yeah.
Pumpkins recorded there. That's where Garbage, Butch Vig is the drummer for Garbage. So you talk about having someone that is listening to your sound outside of yourselves and saying, all right, we're gonna switch this. I mean, so at this point you're playing shows, you're building up. So there's a huge significant change versus, all right, we're doing our own thing. Now someone's giving us direction. And I'm going to tie that in here real quick because this does have a point with Smile. So when Smile came out, Goran, from what I hear, didn't take the direction initially. So he's maintained that Smile was wrecked by the rest of the band.
Yeah, we destroyed that song. We destroyed a couple songs.
We destroyed it in a good way, though.
Yeah,
We blew it up.
We destroyed that with Crash and Listen to the Trees. 3 wonderful, heartfelt ballads that Goran brought to us at about the same time. So
I say this in jest. It's all in fun. Yeah.
But what we discovered during that time of touring was mid-tempo rock. And I think we were influenced by bands like Verve Pipe that were rocking 80 beats per minute, which is ballad tempo. But when you take it and you like Crash and Smile, I think we also discovered that. And
yeah, it's a good point.
I think at that time, Mike, we were still writing from a jam point of view.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't coming in. We were coming in with bits and pieces, but we were still like rocking and jamming as a band. And then we latched onto something, and then all of a sudden that took form of a song, which is different than how we write now. You come in and here's kind of the song and the idea. So
Well, it's like you talked about. I mean, you said the way you wouldn't write a song now without a title and kind of a premise behind it. Where before you said you were more of a jam band, and all of a sudden you would kind of sing over the the music and you'd hit something. But when you look at Smile, I mean, we should probably take a step back and look at Crash, because I believe that's the song you're going to perform, and it was the first song that got some radio time in Milwaukee. So at this point, you go up to Smart Studios, correct? You record this album. You have some direction. How you guys feeling at this point? So this album probably put you a little bit outside of your comfort zone, because it wasn't something that you had total control over. I mean, I'm guessing. What's the feeling in the Gufs camp at that time? So this gets released. You're starting to get some airplay. How are we feeling now? Open question to anyone in the room.
Like rock stars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Super excited. I remember when the album came out. I mean, we were all, every once in a while you hear a song, and even now I think, we could say Goran and I have had these conversations about Hero. It's like, that's a really good tune, man. We're really proud of it. And I think at the time when we finally wrapped up that album, I think we all sort of sat there and popped a bottle of something open and celebrated and said, man, awesome job, man. Well done. We were really proud of it, man. We were really excited.
Well, and you accomplished what you set out for. I mean, this was a Look at Us Now album. I mean, so you got attention from Atlantic. Were there other suitors out there that were trying to court the Gufs at the time? So, I mean, Atlantic obviously is looking at you. Were there other labels that were contacting you based upon this album?
Yeah, Scott still has the piece of paper somewhere. We were like trying to keep track of them, but we'd get updates from our manager. Hey, I got a call from whoever, MCA Records, or we had a list of like 6 or 8 or 9 of them that were all kind of, they wanted to know more. How come you guys are showing up on the radio charts in Milwaukee? Who is this unsigned band that is actually on SoundScan, which is the way you track record sales back then when there were record sales? We were charting. We were top 10, top 5 for the Milwaukee market and airplay and in record sales. And outside of kind of our touring circles, mostly in the Midwest, New York City or LA or whatever, they were asking questions, right? So that was a kind of a cool time.
So
Yeah.
why Atlantic? I cut you off, Goran. I'm sorry.
That's okay. New Rock 102.1, just
Mm-hmm.
heard the record and played Crash. If you listen to the record, it's really disjointed. Like, there's some elements of where we want to go with songs like Crash and Wasting Time and Fear Me Now, Smile, obviously. But then there's also kind of the ties to where we were, which like there's Love Song, which is silly. We wrote that song in the studio. It was more of a joke. I remember writing the lyrics as we were getting ready to sing it. So it's a disjointed record, but New Rock heard it. I don't know, was it Brian Irwin who?
Yeah, I think Irwin was the first one to spin it. He was
Yeah.
I don't know how he made his way there, but
Story, we're selling out Shank Hall. I think at that time we might have played the Majestic Theater and sold it out. Like, we're doing really well. So they're like, okay, who are these guys? So they listened to this record and they decided to play Crash. And I remember it being spun like so many times. It was just crazy. And that propelled us. It didn't even take us to the next level, but it really propelled us to gain some national attention. And, Atlantic came in, and we liked Nick Castanelli, who signed us. And, we'll get into the Gufs Atlantic release, but we felt that the album was so not, thematically and sonically consistent that we changed it. We put in a few new songs on the Atlantic release. So,
but you hit on a point that was actually a fan question we got. I believe it was Kim Moriarty. She had asked, there's on every CD you guys have put out, she asked, there's always I'm paraphrasing her because I don't want to look disinterested and pull up her post right now, but there's always an oddball song in every Gufs CD. In Loser's Love Song was, I think, the one she referenced, and you just kind of touched on that, but there's always these, kind of fun, like little, off-ramp songs that you guys put on your CD. I mean, how does that come about? I mean, is it intentional, or like you said, is it something you just to fill space? I mean, how do these songs come about? Because I think there's a lot of them on each album. You can go back and look, and you're like, yep, it's just a different feel. And you say disconnected, so that's why I asked the question.
Well, back in the day, we used to smoke a lot of marijuana, and I think a lot of those decisions were made, and to clarify the Kim question with, because Losers was actually written for the Atlantic release, so it wasn't on Collide. Am I right? Or is it on Collide as well?
No, I think you're right.
It's on Collide. I think we took it off of.
It's on Collide. Looking at it right now.
Oh, it is on Collide?
It is.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm looking at the Gufs. It's on there too. But we wrote that as a tongue in cheek. If you listen to some of the lyrics that are referencing, like it references a lot of the popular like grunge songs at the time. So they're like, there's a reference to Heart Shaped Box by Nirvana. There's a reference to to a couple other tunes. So we sort of wrote it as just sort of a comical, whimsical rip on everything that was going on, and it tells the story of, I think when we were talking about the two losers, it was sort of like a Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain love affair thing, and they were just sort of like these fictional characters that we used to write it about it, and then it is what it is. I'm not sure what the other goofy songs on the other albums are, but
I've been racking my brain, so I'll come up with them at some point. But
I think at that time we were just, filling. It's not like we had 20 songs to choose from. We were still all going to school, and we were still all.
We were writing, recording, playing, recording. I mean, it wasn't like, here's 50 songs, and we're just going to pick their best 10, right?
I think later.
I was just going to say, I think that I agree with Disjointed, right? I think because I don't think it's not like we were trying to create like a concept album like Dark Side of the Moon or Skylarking by XTC, right? I mean, we were big fans of the song. Even though they were getting heavier, we were still big fans of kind of the pop rock classic structure, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that, but we were also really creative in terms of just trying new things. We weren't really interested in painting ourselves in a box. And I think we would probably have been disappointed with ourselves if every single song sounded like Smile, right? And especially if every single song sounded like Loser's Love Song. But we had a producer one time tell us, guys, every album or even every song you write, it's like your school photo, right? You look back at your senior photo or your 8th grade photo, and you're going to have a bad haircut in one of those pictures, right? And so, like, we know that our back catalog isn't all smiles or all crashes or all whatever. There's some weird ones in there. But I think if you look at it, some of them are tongue-in-cheek. Some of them are kind of interesting. We had, like, 2 instrumental, like, 1 minute 30 songs on our first record, which who knows where that comes. Why were we doing instrumental songs? I think we were having fun, right?
We had a jazz song. Maybe that's what you're referring to. We had a jazz song, Blindfold Removed, My Copper Circa.
Yeah. Well, so you look back and it's like, I mean, it wasn't
Goofy was the
boring to be a part of. Yeah.
And it's like, Mike, it's like Morgan realized, he's like, they're all just bad pictures. So, you look back at a photo and you're like, God, it looks stupid. That's why he cut his hair. He's actually not bald.
No more bad haircuts.
No more bad hair days. So, I mean, that's just Morgan.
Well, but you look at, like I said, and the whole point of this is to look at the whole scope of everything. It's not looking at, like I said, and yeah, I'm trying not to laugh, but it's not. It's right. Goofy was probably too strong.
I think this goes back to, we would take ourselves really seriously back in the day, and we wanted to look good. We wanted, to dress well. We went through our flannel phase and our phase of going to thrift stores. I remember one time, and Morgan would always like try to look good, but I remember one time he shaved his beard, and we're getting ready for a show, and the guys are all in the dressing room, and then we took all the beard clippings or whatever we did, and we put it on top of his head. So he walked out, to meet the guys in the band. He had all this like hair that where did we find that hair from? Where was that from?
It was from me. And I think you're like, dude, check it out. This is what you would look like if you had your hair back. Somebody took a picture. There's a picture out there. Thank God there's no Facebook back then.
Oh man.
Stories we could tell, right?
Oh yeah.
All bad stories.
That's good.
No,
So who are you touring with at this time?
So we were trading shows with a lot of Minneapolis bands and a lot of Chicago bands. And for the life of me, I can't remember a whole heck of a lot of them. The Billies was one I remember from Minneapolis. And so, that's kind of how you did it back then. That's how you broke into different markets, right? So, Johnny Clueless was another one I remember from up here. So, they open up for you in your hometown, or like, we actually were pretty strong in Chicago, even though we were a Milwaukee band. We played a lot of shows in Chicago. So we would have some other bands come. Verve Pipe was another one. We would trade shows with those guys when they came over from Michigan, right? So it was a lot of kind of similar local but also regional bands that were touring. They were playing a lot of different Midwest venues, a lot of different shows, and they were kind of expanding their networks at all. I think the Verve Pipe is probably the one that I remember that would be the one that most people know. We also played a lot of, I think you said on a previous show, you mentioned Citizen King, right? And so as another big Milwaukee band, we did play venues together, bigger venues, drawing obviously different crowds, but working together at that time. And so it was actually really cool because wasn't Verbo another one from Chicago?
Yeah,
remember those guys, right? So they had a
Jason
cello
Narducci
player.
Plays bass with Bob Mold now.
The Idea. Remember The Idea?
The Idea, yep,
The Idea.
From Indiana or Chicago, right?
They were from Chicago.
Yeah, so I think a lot of those guys went on to play in other bands and have some success as well. But that was kind of the pre-Atlantic routine, right? And we'd book a bunch of shows and pile in the van with no seat belts and all our equipment behind us and a love seat packed in there so we could actually all fit together comfortably. And we'd drive to Columbus, Ohio, right? And then we'd play with a band. We'd meet them. We'd invite them back. The circle would get bigger, right? It just kind of kept going around and around.
Yeah, we did a lot of shows too. At that point we had opportunity. We're doing a lot of, because you're a Wisconsin band, you're doing a lot of festivals and such. So you're playing with some maybe bigger national acts. I think the first time we played Summerfest, we opened up for Webb Wilder, and then that led to the next year opening up for another band. To the point, I think by like '94, when Collide came out, I think then right around then we started to headline Summerfest. But I remember we used to do a ton of shows with Freddie Jones Band. Those guys.
Great band.
Yep.
And they were super cool. So we ended up doing a lot of it's that Midwestern college town and college circuit. So like we would play anywhere there was a UW, we played. Whether it was La Crosse up in Green Bay, Eau Claire, Whitewater. It's all those places. So the colleges were always really supportive, and for a lot of those shows, we ended up playing with whoever the biggest local band would be. So like String Beans out of Green Bay. A couple like the bands that Morgan mentioned as well, and then down to Urbana-Champaign. I know there was a couple bands that we played with. Can't remember. There's
Bird on a Wire.
That was another one, another Chicago band, I think. So, but it was like that kind of thing, It's like a little camaraderie. Everybody's like these young fledgling bands that are doing good in their local market and trying to get to the next level. So that's what we were, fortunate to benefit from,
Just
back in the day.
selling CDs and putting people on mailing lists. That's what we were doing back then.
But you guys had some moxie. I mean, you guys were pretty refined at that point, especially going to these other markets. I mean, did you get any backlash from these bands? I mean, you walk in and you wipe the stage with them. I mean, I'm guessing, but
always.
How much reciprocity did you actually get?
We got backlash because Scott never wanted to move his kit.
It's a true story.
If people don't know what that means, go ahead. Somebody explain.
So he didn't want to move his drum set. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a
So
lot
you
of
come
situations
to
where
our
the
town, you come to Milwaukee, and you got to set up in front of us.
Yep.
yeah, but then we would like play with somebody else, and they'd be like, "Yeah, you want to use my drums so we don't have to like move stuff around? That's cool with me." Yeah, that might have caused a little friction occasionally.
Just only with a few bridges were
Especially
burned.
with bird pipe.
Yeah.
Only a few bridges were burned.
But
That's a good way. That's a good way to phrase it.
yeah,
But you know, to your point though, I mean, we were all, even though there was funny moments like that, all the bands, I mean, I wouldn't call it moxie. We were all trying to do the same thing. We were all trying to write. These were all bands that are writing original music. That's a different scene than like playing covers, right? We're all writing our own music. We're all recording our own albums, or maybe signed to small, indie labels, or maybe started your own indie label or whatever. And you're trying to, get names on the mailing list, or, sell CDs out of the trunk of your car or whatever. And so there was some camaraderie, right? And so, bands were always interested in playing in a city that they had never played with or played in before, right? And so, we would say, hey, we do well in Madison, we do well in Milwaukee, we do well in Chicago. That made it easy for us to kind of hook up with people and get into Minneapolis, or get into Columbus, Ohio, or get into the Quad Cities, or get into Champaign, Urbana, or whatever, right? It was kind of a nice little hub for us. And I think it worked to our advantage. We were all pretty cool with each other.
I think lead singers always had a problem. It was something about lead singers and drummers. They got the most attitude, the most ego.
Dan and I had to smooth things over all the time.
Absolutely, man. the UN right here, man.
These players are always cool.
Hey, don't worry. It's him. He's a prima donna, right? No, I'm kidding. But
I can honestly tell you, it wasn't me back then.
But now,
it is now. Yeah.
It is now. Absolutely.
Oh, goodness. So another question we had from the fan base, Jim Miller. I think you guys know Jim.
Jim Miller. Anybody?
He asked off Collide, if there was one song you could go back and redo or modify, which song would that be?
Ooh.
I think you have a few of them, but
I don't think I would go back and redo any of them. Again, this is kind of my bad haircut theory. They're snapshots, and they're a painter doesn't go back and repaint a painting. When it's done, it's done. You go on to whatever else you want to paint next, right? So I guess I kind of wouldn't really. Sorry, Jim, I wouldn't really entertain that.
I mean, there's something charming about what you put down, but when I'm looking at like the CD, and
what's on that CD?
The songs, one of my favorite songs around that time was Emily, which I thought was a beautiful song. But if you really listen to that song, it's like we were on some Queen Bohemian Rhapsody thing, because there's like 7 parts to it. And a lot of these songs too, I mean, it's taken 2 minutes to get to the chorus. Like nowadays, if you can't get to the chorus within the first minute, then you've done something wrong. So I don't know, maybe I'd simplify Emily. Lost Along the Way, we'd slow down.
Oh, yeah.
Slow down, really?
Oh, God, yeah.
So damn fast. I think we slow it down live now compared
Oh,
to
we have to, yeah.
how we play it.
We can't play it. We're too old.
Wasting Time, I thought, was kind of cool. I remember when we did Wasting Time, we were in the studio. And everybody's like, all right, Gordy, that's what they call me.
Yeah.
Can you re-sing that line? That when you say fuck, it sounds kind of like melodic and like, I don't know, like really soft. Can you put some grit into it? So that was kind of funny hearing my voice sing the word fuck.
Well, and that's like one of the only times that you actually swear in any of your songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Sunday Daughter, I thought was super cool. I love that song.
It's kind of a.
Oh, I agree with that one. That would be a cool one to revisit. Yeah.
Well, it looks like we got some work out of you. No.
A song, it can be interpreted differently, and you put it down, like Morgan said, it's a snapshot. but we went back and recorded other songs that we thought that maybe we can get it right and do it differently. And on Holiday from You, what did we do? We redid.
Last Goodbye and Get Back Yourself. And and that's a good point. So we have gone back and we've redone songs. We even recorded for the Atlantic release, re-recorded, not substantially different, but just maybe a different take, slightly different arrangement, maybe, or instrumentation. Some songs that were on Collide. But when we've done that, both versions kind of hold their own weight. I mean, some people might have their favorites, and I, like Give Back Yourself and Last Goodbye. I like the newer versions better than the older versions personally, but I listened to the older versions, which we re-released on the deluxe version of Holiday from You. They're cool too. They're just different, right? So
why'd you get rid of the? I'm assuming it was Dejan. Were you the voice on Listen to the Trees?
Yeah.
So what came about removing that from, and not getting ahead of ourselves, but I thought about this the way over. How did that get removed from this version to the Atlantic? And I'm listening. I'm like, I had to go back like 6 times. I'm like, that's totally Dejan. I'm going to be looking like an idiot if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I mean, at the time, I was like, up to that point, I was writing a lot of poetry and stuff, and somehow, never of my own accord, but somehow it came into some of our tunes. Like, what was Small Town, and then there was one other that Blindfold Removed on Songs of Life. That's basically just us jamming, and it was a poem of mine, which actually was called Blindfold Removed.
The Chosen.
The Chosen was another one. So I don't know. It was just something that I think, just as we were young artists and we were experimenting with music, we were just, hey, that'd be cool, Dan, if you like read a line here or you did something, and so we did that repeatedly. And I think when it got to the Atlantic, when it got time to redo or re-release Collide as the Atlantic release, I think some of us decided, like, all right, man, enough with that. That's just like, there's no value to that. I don't even know what we're saying and what what does it even mean? Just having this arbitrary little spoken word part in the middle of it.
Yeah. And now you got a label saying, hey guys, like, Listen to the Trees live, like that's a huge song. How do we make that translate on the radio? Crash, we did radio edits for Crash. We did radio edits for Smile. So you had to, once you got invited to the big dance, you had to play a little bit by the rules. Otherwise, you didn't really have a chance. And Listen to the Trees is probably a song that I don't think we could ever record well. It's just a live song. We tried recording it so many different times, and it just doesn't sound the way it does live. So, some songs are meant to just.
I would agree. I mean, you kind of hit it on the head. Anything about this album that we haven't covered that you want to share? Or did we cover it all? Little thinking session here.
I just, back to kind of the sound of the album. When you mentioned, Mike, that we'd be talking about it, the first thing I remember was getting invited by the producer, Brian Anderson, to come to the studio to check out some of what they had in-house for guitars and amplifiers and equipment. They had Butch had like stockpiled just years and years worth of, guitar pedals and just random stuff. And Brian thought it'd be cool if before we started recording that checked out what they had. And so Mike Zirkle, who at the time was an intern at Smart Studios, and then he went on to be an engineer, and he's produced a lot of people out of that studio. I think he's worked with Butch on Garbage stuff as well too. He let me in and nobody else was there. We go down in this like dungeon of a basement, and there's like 50 different amplifiers, and we literally, I can't believe I would do this now, like actually take the time. I think we spent like 5 hours there in a damp and kind of dusty basement, just plugging in things. And he was super into it. He's like, yeah, you got to check this one out. And like, we're probably going deaf, right? It's just me and him in like a, concrete basement. But the bottom line is, and it kind of goes back to the sound of the record, it really opened up a lot of things. Like if we wanted to try to make a sound dirtier or smoother or cleaner or whatever, like we could, what about that thing or that pedal? Goran even had made that conscious choice to go to electric guitar, and he was experimenting with guitar tones and pedals and, trying different things. So, it really kind of, I think, opened up our minds to how much control there is. And if you put in the time and you put in the effort and you really care, you can do some pretty cool things. And I think that, that's what separates, I think, even today, a lot of the music that you hear. There's so much time and effort that can go into making something the difference between good and like amazing. And that was, I think, our first experience with having the opportunity. Whether or not we made it amazing, that's open to interpretation. We had a great time doing it, but I think it was our first opportunity to really kind of, pull out the stops and get really creative. And I just remember it being a great time. We stayed in a hotel in Madison, and like, I don't even know how long we were there. It seemed like weeks and weeks and weeks, right? But we would, every single day, we'd work until like 3-4 in the morning, and then we'd go home. We'd stop at the sub shop. We'd all eat subs every single night, and we'd watch Law and Order in the hotel room. Some of us were sleeping on the floor. I think we were all staying in one room. So it was an amazing, great experience that, and I don't think a lot of bands get to, really do that, but I think it bonded us. And I think it was really kind of the beginning of a lot of growth, which, obviously you guys will talk about the future records, but it was the beginning of, kind of us realizing that we weren't just a bar band and we weren't just a college band. So that was cool. It was a cool beginning.
Yeah. Also,
well, and I think it was amazing. I mean, we're here today talking about it, years and years later. I mean, so you're right. Whether it was amazing or not, it was, and I think that's something that has resonated for are we talking 15 years now? I mean, so we're still talking about Collide. So, but
more than that, right? What was it? 94?
God, I'm dating myself. My math is
I
horrible.
was gonna say we were. I appreciate
25,
it.
25.
Edit that out. No.
I was gonna say if that was only 15 years ago, man, it's been a rough 15 years for me.
It's really easy to lose 10 years. I mean, that's totally easy. It could happen to anyone.
Like in 2020.
I lost 10 years in 2020.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we talked about playing Crash for this episode. I don't know if you guys, Goran, you just want to do it. You guys want to try and throw it together? I mean, it's your call. I don't know how prepared everyone else is, but
Well, I mean, I think before we play it, we should probably talk how it came to be, because it wasn't always.
Yep. Okay.
Crash.
Okay.
Again, the guys kind of tarnished what I.
All right. So hold it there. So
I'm
hold
tired
it
of my.
All right. So hold it there. We'll roll back into that.
I'm tired of my melodic balladeering turning into rock anthem.
All right. Well, hang on to that thought for a second. So.
And
I think, Goran, you should play maybe the original version.
Yeah.
We did that in the intro. He played "Smile" the way.
Oh, did you do it already? Okay.
No, but we haven't done "Crash." But so anyway, so the song I believe that we're going to play tonight is "Crash" from the album Collide. Goran, give us a little background on how this song came about and how, as we said about "Smile," the rest of the band wrecked this song. Give us the whole story.
Yeah, this is just another example of a great ballad
about a girl
ruined by Morgan, Scott, and Dan. That I remember writing it. We were in Minneapolis, and we were coming back from a show, feeling real good. I think everybody hooked up the night before, and we were in at that time, which was kind of our home away from home, Shirley. You guys remember Shirley?
We're getting to Shirley. So
Shirley
who-
was
Shirley?
we bought Shirley with record advance money. Okay, you're skipping ahead. So we
No.
we did not have Shirley.
You're
was the
fucking
bass
killing
one?
the historian in me,
What was
Goran.
the bass one?
The Manila Monster, man.
The Flesh Zombie was
The Flesh Zombie, the Manila Monster.
So we were.
that was the van with like a love seat in the back,
Yeah.
no seat belts.
So we bought a van that had no seats in it. It was a cargo van, and we put some love seats in it. And we thought that driving around hundreds and hundreds of miles from show to show was a safe thing to do
Without any heat.
without any heat. We had blankets, but I remember leaving that show, and we had a killer show in Minneapolis, and I remember having this idea, and we were smoking a lot of weed, and I go, guys, is anybody hungry? And at that time, Morgan was just a huge fan of Baker Square. And we would drive around trying to find Baker Square. And I remember going, and I had this idea, and he goes, I had a melodic idea. He just wanted to order a key lime pie. So it's like, I go, key lime pie. And Dan goes, hey, what about crash into me? I go, okay, whatever. Or collide. And I went, collide, crash into me. So it was originally called Key Lime Pie. Luckily, Dan had the wherewithal to take it to a different level. This song actually, they didn't fuck up. This song they got right.
So where does Shirley come into this equation?
Shirley comes in later. I guess Shirley was the next band we bought when we upgraded from.
Well, put it this way: Crash allowed us to buy Shirley.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. When you think about that, Collide, the record, Crash made everything happen, and what else was interesting around that time is we kind of introduced Brian Pettit as the fifth member of the band, and I was always into different textures and loving the idea of having more fullness to a song, and I don't think I think he added a different element to the band that obviously was short-lived, and we can get into that in Holiday. But he was a big part of the success, I think, of the live show at that time, because everybody loved Brian and his cut-off sleeve shirts and how cute he was, right? You guys, right?
His overalls.
His overalls, which
He
only
was a fan favorite.
Yeah. So
The classic Djembe waddle. Came out like a pregnant woman.
hidden under his shirt. Woo, surprise.
So I guess I'll play the song that took it to a different level. And I think when we wrote it, didn't we not have words in that O part? And we thought that it would just be cool if the crowd sang, oh. And did we add lyrics to that later after the fact?
I don't remember.
I remember Atlantic saying something like, you can't have like an oh without any words.
Yeah, I know the lyrics for that tune. We wrote a lot of that in Smart Studios. So we had the song, the bones of the song, and at least the chorus put together. And then I remember us finishing that at Smart Studios.
The Collide version might have just O's without. Does it have? In a place I've never been. though not equally concerned. I'm almost positive that we put that in kind of after the fact, but I guess I'll play it. But the only way I'm going to play it is if Dan and Morgan say the O's.
All right. This is me going for the mute button. Hold on a second. Let me mute myself really quick.
You can just lip sync.
And this is probably the coolest guitar riff ever created by Morgan Darling.
Hey, Mike, let's make sure we edit out this tuning part, please. We're at 125.
Important part of Goran's stage presence is tuning his guitar.
You know, the funny thing is, I was never really much of a talker.
But your guitars were always perfectly in tune.
But my guitars were always perfectly in tune, but I remember the guys would always say, like every show, could you not fucking tune your guitar so much? And I just wanted it always to be perfect because that's just how I am. Every lead singer is perfect. She climbs right down onto me. Understand, I'll believe in anything. And tonight you're everything. You're a place I've never been. Though not equally concerned. Everything I hope you'll be. And tonight you're here with me. Girl, you're here with me. Days pass me by, finding hope when I see a stranger's face. As the night falls into place, in a place I've never been, though not equally concerned. Everything I hope you'll be. Tonight you're here with me. Climb, crash into me, feeling myself cold. Climb, crash into me, who is in control? Is in control. Time slips right through my mind, fading fast as I see the things I do, and I know you see right through. In a place I've never been, though not equally concerned. Everything I hope you'll be, and tonight you're here with me. Collide, crash into me, feeling myself cold. Collide, control. Tonight you're here with me. Collide, crash into me. We let myself go. Collide, crash into me. Who is in control? Yeah, collide. We let myself go. Collide. Who is in control? Feeling myself go. Is in control. Oh, nice. I was wondering where Morgan went, and I should have known.
We heard like all of a sudden like he's leaving.
It
I'm
sounded like there was a squirrel in his monitor.
You know, it's like we've always been a serious band, but it's been nothing but laughs and jokes and just for 30 years, just having fun.
Hijinks.
Yeah, it's
Hijinks.
We're only superficially serious. We're the goofiest bastards, and Goran especially, for a guy that writes so many heartfelt, like, make women and men cry songs. He's the goofiest motherfucker out of all of us, like,
It's true.
times 100.
Yeah.
And then you just sprinkle all of us in a room together, and then it's just chaos.
She loves
As I was eating the pie.
It's delicious. You know, the funny thing, Scott, maybe we get Scott on an episode, but Scott was always the most serious. But we would just love to make Scott laugh.
Well, now we know the true meaning of crash. So, you know, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like we talked last. One of the songs you don't want to know that was written about a cat. Now we know crash was written about key lime pie.
Absolutely.
So, there you
It
go.
was written about a pie. Or
Because when you go down on that
maybe
pie, the pie, it's so sweet. Edit that out.
I'm serious.
Well, unless you guys got anything to add, I think I've monopolized enough of your time for one night.
It's fun. It's
Yeah.
nice having some other faces and voices. So
That's great. We can do this.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Yeah, we can do this every Wednesday if you're up for it. So I think next week we're going to move into the Atlantic release. Some more stories, some more transition, more stories. And
I'm
maybe we'll talk about
going to be at Baker Square until about 7:30, but I think I can dial in like right after that. So
sign
it's
it out.
pie night. Morgan is always really into 2-for-1 pies.
lately I've been into cream pies.
Well, again, thank you all for joining us tonight. Appreciate your time, stories, and I just trying to roll.
You don't know what to say, do you, Mike?
No,
You have no idea. You have no idea what to do with us.
I'm taking mental notes for next time. So, but guys, have a good night. Great talking to you, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night.
Thanks for having us, Mike. Yeah, thank you.
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Here's some pie.